A lot of people think that buying a used graphics card is going to yield the best price to performance, but that may not be the case.
Or you're watching today's video and you're thinking, hey, I have the RX 6800, should I upgrade to the RX 9060 XT 16GB? In today's video, we test both of those theories and tell you all about it after a word from today's sponsor. Shout out to Jawa.gg for sponsoring today's video. Stay tuned till later in the video where we'll do some shopping on Jawa to show you all the deals they have to offer for PC gamers.
So we have two GPUs before us today. They're both 16 gigs of VRAM. They're both GDDR6 as well. We have the RX 6800 16 gig, which is a card that's been out for 5 years and we had to buy it used. You really cannot buy these new anymore. If you're buying them new, you're probably getting ripped off. And we have the Prime 9060 XT 16 gig.
Let's go over the key specs of the RX 6800 first, because this GPU released in 2020 and has some interesting hardware that makes it seem very similar to the RX 9060 XT 16 gig, but on the used market, you can pick this thing up for around $350, which compared to the average market price of the 9060 XT 16 gig, you're saving about 30, maybe 40 bucks, depending if you get this for like 340 to 350 bucks. But some of the specs you need to know are as follows. This graphics card is an RDNA 2.0 GPU, releasing again in 2020. So this GPU is quite old nowadays. 16 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM. It is 7 nanometer. It is PCI 4.0 by 16 with a TDP of 250 watts. And this card launched at $579. So when this card was released, it was a high-end GPU. But nowadays, again, the price has lowered quite a bit. It is more on par with the mid-range option from AMD nowadays, the 9060 XT 16 gig, but how does it actually compare in titles? Let's talk about the key specs of that GPU.
Now the 9060 XT is also 16 gigs of GDDR6. It's on the RDNA 4.0 architecture. It's 4 nanometer for the chip. This card runs in PCIe Gen 5 by 16. It has a max TDP of 160 watts, and the launch MSRP was 350 bucks, but this is that weird gen where we're kind of seeing prices be higher than the MSRP typically, so you're usually looking at more like 379, but the price will probably drop.
Now the biggest thing I'm interested to see is you are saving money with the 6800, but you're losing out on newer ray tracing performance, and the games we are going to test have some sort of forced ray tracing involved, and that seems to be the trend we're going with a lot of new games releasing with that technology. So will this used RX 6800 still be a good price performance option because it is cheaper, or will be buying new actually the better price performance option? We got to introduce our new test bench though and tell you all about the specs inside this thing, with shout out to Asus for making it possible, and then we'll dive into some testing between both GPUs to see which one is the better price performance option.
For our Toasty Bros test bench, we have the Ryzen 7 9800X3D 8-core 16-threaded processor. And to cool the CPU, we're using the Asus ROG Strix LC3 360mm AIO. The motherboard is an Asus TUF Gaming B850 Plus Wi-Fi DDR5 board. We have 32 gigs of Team Group Delta RGB 6000 MHz CL28 RAM. Our NVMe is a 4TB Lexar NM790 Gen 4 SSD. We have plenty of power with the Asus TUF 1200 watt power supply that is fully modular and ATX 3.1 ready. Our case is the Asus TUF GT502, which is a pretty large full tower case, and then we loaded it with Asus TUF TR 120mm ARGB fans. So guys, now that we talked about our wonderful new test bench and we talked about our GPUs here, we're going to combine the two, and we got a lot of benchmarks to run. Alright guys, we are on the RX 6800 in Doom the Dark Ages, which is a game that, man, it loves ray tracing and it loves newer GPUs, but we get the same amount of VRAM. We're 16 gig versus 16 gig. 6800, obviously a little bit older. It's 2 generations old at this point, but you still have 16 gigs of VRAM, and on top of that, you have similar horsepower, but we're missing out on some newer technologies. Because right now, you know, we're running 1440p, we're doing respectable settings, medium settings. There is a built-in ray tracing, but right now we have path tracing turned off, and we're not using any upscaling or anything. So we're asking a lot of this, and we're getting like pretty constantly like close to 50 FPS with a little bit higher latencies than I love to see, but it's running. It's definitely better than like when we tested out what was that, my 6700 XT?
Yes.
And Doom was, I was not able to get near the 80 FPS I needed in the challenge. But I think this is gonna be one of those games where you're gonna be a lot happier spending the extra 40 bucks to get the better ray tracing, the newer upscaling, and the better streaming capabilities.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for you guys, and on average, we saw it and we talked about it at the beginning of the video, about a $40 difference. You're probably getting this card for around 340 to 350 bucks, 350 being the average. So at that point, you're only looking at really a $30 difference, but we'll mess around with some upscaling as well to see how this does with upscaling, just like we'll do with all the other cards. But we just gotta see, is going used worth it, or are you better off buying the latest and greatest? And we'll see, because you guys are very curious about the performance difference between these two.
Now, before we swap to the 9060, I think it's worth trying some upscalers. So let's do FSR. I think this GPU might like that. We'll just go performance with frame gen, and we are running. The overlay has changed once again. We've kind of realized that when you turn on any type of upscaling, that's when, for some reason, MSI just completely breaks the game. So here we are.
No idea why, but we're getting 100
a lot more
plus
FPS.
yeah.
Yeah, the response times, it's typical, it's upscaling, it says it's better. It doesn't feel much better, I will be honest, but it doesn't look bad. It still feels like there's just a bit of input delay, but if you look at like the embers and everything, it's definitely running smoother. I'm curious to see, yeah, we'll get a pretty big jump. I'm like, is the 9060 XT gonna get that big of a jump when we turn on upscaling? I would think so, but we'll have to find out by testing it.
Let's swap to it.
All right, we're on the more modern graphics card, the 9060 XT. So we're starting off on those same settings where we're not running any upscaling. So we just got TAA, 100%. Medium, we are running just the built-in ray tracing, the path tracing's off. Yeah, a little bit of improvement. I think what were we getting before, like 40?
It was like 50 with dips into the 40s. So we're about looking at a 10 FPS improvement for the most part.
And it feels smoother, I will say that much. This feels a lot closer to like a normal 60 FPS. The latency feels pretty decent. We weren't quite getting that before. Sadly, I did accidentally progress into the next area, and I don't know how to go back, so.
This is still very close.
Yeah, we'll move forwards a little bit. It might be a little more demanding, honestly, doing this. But yeah, we're definitely not looking too bad.
Yeah, before, I think the better ray tracing support is what's really helping us here.
This is about to go crazy.
This is about to go crazy right here.
Yeah, let's actually, so we know that it's running a little better.
Yes.
But let's see if some of these new technologies, so we'll do some that, and I think we did performance,
with
yep.
frame gen
on. I know we got a lot more with the 6800.
Got like 150 last time.
Ooh, okay, yeah, this is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So I was worried that this card would because I was like, wow, that's a lot of frame gen, but it's doing the same thing. We're getting a little bit more FPS than we were before. We're getting like 170, which I think with the 6800 we went to what, like 120, 130?
Yeah, about that.
More than that. But yeah, I think we were seeing about 7 milliseconds once we did that. We're seeing about 6 now.
Yep.
So yeah, this is definitely the slightly better experience. Not to mention, if you decided to stream or anything along with this, the 9060 does also have much better streaming capabilities. So at the moment, if we're versing the two cards, I wouldn't worry about saving the 40 bucks. I'd worry about having the longevity and the newer technologies, but maybe another game will tell us a different story.
Next game. All right, guys, so we are in Indiana Jones, the VRAM simulator with the RX 6800. Now, we are doing some craziness here because the last game we tested, Doom, has some forced ray tracing, but again, it's not crazy ray tracing. This game will go crazy on the ray tracing and for whatever reason, use every bit of VRAM you give it. So we're just gonna see what both cards can do on these higher details. So we're on a high preset, but we are using path tracing on a medium, which is also low. It's the same thing. I don't know what's the game saying medium is the lowest preset, but whatever. So we're on the medium preset with path tracing, and we aren't using any upscaling, I believe. We are on native. Okay, so I expect a low FPS, and we're getting low FPS. And look at the VRAM usage. We're over 16 gigs of VRAM.
This looks slow motion.
It does look slow motion. Look at the characters in the distance. They're running kind of slow motion.
I do have a theory with the whole Spider-Man in this game doing the ray tracing, saying high, medium, but it's really low. They probably do that because a lot of people don't want to know what these settings mean. And so they're like, if we put it as low, they're just going to tank the FPS and be like, wait, why is low settings tanking my FPS?
It wouldn't make any sense because it's kind of an unnecessary feature. But yeah, walking around here with these settings, we're only getting about 30 FPS. Is it technically playable? Yes, but I would not play this game at 30 FPS, especially with this ray tracing preset. Now we will try a couple things. We'll just say pretty comfortably 30 FPS using a bunch of VRAM. We'll try upscaling first to see if upscaling will allow us to get to that 60 mark. So we'll go into video here, scroll all the way down. It's interesting playing this game with a graphics card that has enough VRAM that won't crash it. So
it's crazy. That's nice, it's actually pulling more VRAM. It's like borrowing VRAM.
It's borrowing. So we'll do FSR set to balanced. We'll just leave it on native that way and see what we can get. That helps. Not amazing though, I'll be honest with you. We're getting like 50 FPS, 51. Again, I will show you my ideal settings here in a minute, but just to keep things fair, FSR set to balance with the same settings. Comfortably about 40 to 50 FPS, a few stutters here and there. You see the frame time graph, we are still getting a little spike here and there while we're walking around, which isn't ideal. But if I were to play this game and I want to run just optimized settings, I would do the following. I would go into here, especially with this GPU, I would just say, you know what, ray tracing? goodbye. FSR, I could just turn it off, but I'll leave it on just for the sake of showing you guys how much the ray tracing just impacts the FPS. 100 plus FPS now. Much smoother. Our VRAM went all the way down to 11 gigs. It's that path tracing that really just pushes things to its limits. Do you need path tracing? No. But we're getting close to that price point of GPU where you'd like to try it at least, you know? But this GPU is struggling a bit. Will the 9060 XT with its better ray tracing support get better FPS? We'll swap to it and find out. Okay guys, we are in Indiana Jones once again, and now we're at the 9060 XT 16 gig, and this is definitely an improvement. We were getting about 30 FPS on average last time. Whoever's playing this music needs to stop. It is loud. But now we're getting about 45. And I think, again, most gamers, don't play all AAA titles that are really demanding. We're kind of showing you guys worst case scenario in this video. Most of you at home, let's be honest, you're playing CS, you're playing Fortnite, you're playing Call of Duty. Those are the kind of games that a lot of you who watch our videos are playing, but most people who like to see the worst case scenario want to see these games, the benchmark games, I like to call them, that show the worst possible scenario and the future of gaming that is, well, forced ray tracing. And these better, newer GPUs, sadly, again, it kind of hurts to use market value a little bit, these older ones, make them much better options for these newer games. And again, this isn't the way I would play this game. I would go into the settings here and scroll down and turn on some FSR, which if we go to FSR set to balance without frame gen, with the same medium ray tracing, we're now getting 70 FPS, which last time we were still getting some stutters below 60. This is a good experience. 70 to 60 FPS, looks smooth. No major stutters that I'm feeling. The frame time graph looks pretty solid. You could definitely play this game and get a comfortable 60 FPS. But if you wanted to go a little crazier and you're just like, you know what? I don't really care about ray tracing. I just want a ton of extra performance. I just broke my ankles. Go into here, just like we did before, and we turn off that ray tracing because we don't need path tracing. I just don't feel like path tracing's the thing. 130 FPS. Just like that, you're gonna have no problems running this very well. And now I'm like in pain apparently because I fell to my death, hurt my ankles. Indy.
My ankles.
But yeah, I would say this card handles this game better. Newer technologies needs a newer card. Does that hurt the used market value of some of these other cards? Yeah, and I think the 6800 so far, based on what we've seen, should probably drop a bit more for it to be worth it for those gamers who don't really care about playing the latest and greatest titles like this that force ray tracing. But with more games getting like this, a lot of you want to play them. You don't want to be limited just for saving 30 or 40 bucks. So now we're going to move on to a new game, Killing Floor 3, that actually released today. The game that, well, came out today. We're very excited to test out. Jackson and I have been playing Killing Floor since the first one came out, and we're going to see, can the 9060 XT continue its winning streak in Killing Floor 3?
All right, we're playing a game that just came out today at the time of filming this video. So this is Killing Floor 3. I've been so excited about this game. This is a game that Matt and I discovered really early on with Killing Floor 1. But we're running just basically like a 1440p high preset. We got max FOV, V-Syncs off, and limited frame rate. We're using standard bloom, lens flares on. There's only a couple, so we have a reflection method of lumen, and then lumen. So we do have ray tracing, TSR set to 100, so this is no upscaling. I think this is the first time Killing Floor's had upscaling.
Yeah, definitely the first time there was any upscaling, because the other one came out before upscaling was really even a thing, and I don't think they updated it with it. So looks good.
Yeah, this definitely would not be quite a playable. I mean, it's playable, but like not great. Yeah. We need to turn off these the hit markers. The markers just don't work in this game. I'm telling y'all.
Hit markers. Yeah, now we're getting dips into the 30s. This is definitely gonna be one of those where you're gonna wanna turn on some upscaling, see what the upscaling works like. But yeah, the game does look good for our first impressions of it.
Yeah, I'd say looks-wise looks great, but yeah.
Performance, I wouldn't run this.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get a little more FPS. So little Z bars up there. Yeah, let's try before this round ends. So let's try some upscaling. I don't really know yet what's good on this, but they do have FSR and XCSS. Try performance, see what that does.
A lot better.
Wow.
You're gonna want to run some FSR on this game.
I will say on performance, I think graphics aren't quite as good.
Yeah.
So it could be worth maybe doing like, kind of meet in the middle. Maybe FSR set to like quality, but then lower the game to like medium settings.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we're getting like, close to 100 FPS, like 90-ish. So it's pretty good. I feel like the 9060 XT is definitely gonna have an edge here, but we'll see.
We'll swap to it and find out.
All right, we're on the 9060 XT 16 gig in Killing Floor 3, and we are running no upscaling. I'll show you guys the settings once again, just totally conform. Boom. Boom, high, max FOV. We got some ray tracing, TSR set to 100%. Not how I would run this game, because I would not want to be getting 40 FPS with these type of response times.
And this seems actually very similar to the 6800, but the 6800 was dipping more into the 30s. Okay, we're still getting there. So again, to be fair, we are testing this on the day of the launch of this. This could very well be an optimization thing. The 9060 XT 16 gig could get some better driver support whenever it gets another update. So, but we're gonna switch to some upscale. What we'd actually run this on.
Yeah, this first round goes so quick, I gotta hurry up and get to it. But yeah, and I did turn off the hit markers, if anybody cares.
If anyone cares. Last time we were getting about 90 FPS. This is,
yeah, close to the same. I mean, maybe slightly better. We'll have to, you know, Mikhail's roll side by side for us.
Yep.
I'm gonna assume that like the response time and the FPS is like maybe a couple better. But yeah, this is one of the few examples of a game where I think you'll see that the 9060 XT versus the 6080, the hardware-wise, they're very similar. Like when they're just running all natty, you know, pretty similar. This is funny though, because we have ray tracing on everything, so I'm surprised that this one doesn't seem a good amount better.
Yeah, the ray tracing support doesn't seem to be helping it that much, but we are hitting, I would say, we hit 100 there at one point, probably like 5 to 6 FPS higher.
And
so,
one thing to note too that maybe, I don't know if we'll talk about much more, but the wattage difference.
Yes, you should save a lot because you're only using one 810 on this one versus two 810s on the 6800.
Yeah, so that's, you know, another thing to think about is just like the heat, the power draw, you know, there's small things to some people, but for some people you may be like, oh yeah, that's worth the savings in electricity for me.
So yeah, guys, Killing Floor, it looks like much closer with Killing Floor 3, but again, this game just launched at the time recording this video, so again, up to you guys and how things would look in the updates in the future, but now we gotta test some benchmarkus action. We gotta see what Oblivion Remaster can do on these GPUs. Okay guys, we are now in Oblivion Remaster. Again, the benchmarkus simulator. Roll that intro, you know what to do. All right, we're here. So we are currently running 1440p. We're triple checking here. This is the second time we've done this actually. 1440p, medium settings. We have no anti-aliasing or upscaling. We're just running 1440p with hardware ray tracing on low. And this seems more like what I thought it was gonna be like. We're getting about 45 FPS. Again, Lumen ray tracing with these older gen GPUs. It does have hardware ray tracing, but it's just not nearly as good as the new gen cards. That's where I expect to see a performance uplift, but we'll see. Maybe it's closer than we expected. We'll run up here real quick. Yeah, 40 to 50 FPS seems to be the average. Our CPU isn't at 100%. We're just full on GPU horsepower, baby.
This is kind of like the last generation before AMD caught up on ray tracing.
Yes, definitely, because AMD had the option in 6000 series, but it was never as good as NVIDIA's. But nowadays, it's much better, especially with all these games having some sort of hardware ray tracing requirements baked in. Looks good. I mean, the ray tracing looks really nice. And yeah, we're only getting about 40 to 50 FPS. I wouldn't play this game at this FPS. It's definitely one of those where I would try my best to get at least 60. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is turn on some upscaling, because that's what you do in this situation, right? Keep ray tracing on low, turn on some, up here, some FSR set to balanced. We'll turn frame gen off. We'll just run FSR balanced. Wait for the portal to come back. Is it gonna come back? Hey! And yeah, now we're getting 60 FPS. It feels a lot smoother, but it's not dramatically better. You know, the ray tracing is still really pushing this hardware. So, you know, 60 FPS with FSR performance, I would probably just run no ray tracing on this graphics card, to be honest, but we'll know for sure if it's just this game or if the graphics card is a little bit hindered because of its poor ray tracing performance versus the 9060 XT 16 gig when we swap to that card and find out. But 40 FPS without it, FSR about 60, pretty comfortably 60 actually. Let's do a sky test.
Whoa.
Let's see what the 9060 XT 16 gig can do. Okie dokie guys, we are now messing around with the 9060 16. Oh, what is happening? What is happening? All right, give it a second, We're waiting for things to load. We normally don't do that, so we're waiting for things to load. This is the 9060 XT 16 gig, by the way, in Oblivion Remastered, and we're running these same settings, just to confirm. 1440p, medium, with no anti-aliasing or upscaling, and Lumen hardware ray tracing set to low. This is better. Before it was in the 40s. So once again, another game that is handling the ray tracing just much better with the newer gen card and more improved ray tracing support. And like it or not, these games are gonna be ray traced from here on out. That's going to be the thing in the future, and it sucks for the older cards because they're going to struggle a little bit, or they got to run with lower settings, or eventually have to find some setting to turn off the ray tracing to make it work. But these newer cards are going to be much better, and when we're talking about a $40 difference here in the US at the time of recording this video, that $40 seems well worth it if you are going to get the ray tracing support. All right, let's run up to the gates. To the gates! Away from you! I don't want to see you anymore.
To the gates of hell.
Looks absolutely stunning. But yeah, we're getting about 50 FPS. This is definitely an improvement, but as we mentioned before, we got to show you guys a little FSR on balance, but no frame gen. Last time we were getting about 60 FPS. Do we see an improvement? Come back, gates! 70 FPS. This card is just doing good. I mean, there's no doubting that the 9060 XT 60 gig is a great card, especially on the new market. I'm so confused with this new versus used action. It is a great new card with an average price of around $379. But if you get one for $379 versus $340 or $350 for $6,800, I'm feeling pretty confident that I would go the 9060 XT 16 gig, unless you somehow manage to get it for a little bit less, which we'll talk about that during the outro, but we got another game. But now we tested all the Let's Play games, let's do some side-by-side benchmarks to further confirm our theory that the 9060 XT 16 gig seems like a better option. Some other games that are not as ray tracing forward, so they're much more esports titles and stuff like that. And then we'll come to our conclusion to tell you all our recommendation on which card you should focus on if you're looking to buy one or the other. Okay guys, so we've had a lot of fun testing the RX 6800 versus the 9060 XT 16 gig, but before we do the side-by-side benchmarks, I gotta give a shout out to today's video sponsor, Jawa.gg. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you know we've been working with Jawa for a long time, and their offerings are really awesome for PC gamers, because not only is this marketplace backed by a community of PC gamers, but it's also digitally moderated by a bunch of professionals that allow you to shop securely and get the best possible deals with a money-back guarantee in case something goes wrong. Now enough about the talking points, let's just scroll through Jawa real quick and show you guys what you can actually buy. For example, there's a bunch of different GPUs you could pick up today, whether you're looking for an RX 6800 or a 9060 XT 16 gig. Always looking on the used market is the best way to get the best price performance, and we've been preaching that since the beginning of this channel. For example, a 6650 XT for $185, in this current market that's pretty good for 1080p high settings gaming and about a $600 to $700 gaming PC. Or you could buy an RTX 3070 Ti Vision card for $320. This card performs better than an RTX 4060, and it's a Vision card, so it looks super clean in an all-white gaming PC build. There's so many different deals to browse for on Jawa.gg, whether you're buying a graphics card or, as you guys can see right here, you can even buy budget gaming PCs. Building isn't for everyone, so maybe you want to buy a ready-to-ship gaming PC from a wide range of different sellers that sell a lot of different computers. Jawa's got a ton of options to choose from. Even some name brands you may have heard of are listing on Jawa to sell to you. So what are you guys waiting for? If you guys want to shop for some deals on Jawa, maybe you're looking for a GPU after watching today's video, use that link down below and use code TOSI10 on checkout. You'll save 10% off your first purchase up to $10. And let me know in the comments down below while you're watching the rest of this video if you find any deals on Jawa today. Now, let's get to those side-by-side benchmarks, shall we? All right, guys, it is finally time to wrap up the benchmarks of this video, and we'll do some side-by-side comparisons so you can see how does the RX 6800 compare to the 9060 XT 16 gig, and if the Let's Play benchmarks are anything, it's probably going to be more of the same. But let's run some benchmarks and show you guys what we found out. First up, we got Marvel Rivals, 1440p medium settings. The RX 6800 got an average of 72 FPS with a 1% low of 18, while the 9060 XT 16 gig got an average of 78 FPS with a 1% low of 14. We're talking about saving $30 in exchange for 6 FPS on these settings. Personally, I would not do that, but it does show you that the gap between these GPUs in terms of raw horsepower in a game like Marvel Rivals is quite close. Next up, CS2, which is definitely a CPU-bound test, but it allows you to see the difference between the two graphics cards when the CPU is the bottleneck. At 1440p low settings, the RX 6800 got an average of 615.5 FPS with a 1% low of 282.1, while the 9060 XT 16 gig got an average of 624.5 FPS with 1% low of 276. Again, very close here in terms of raw horsepower. This is the one example that I would mention if you are somebody who maybe can find an RX 6800 for about $60 to $70 less, and you only play games like CS or other titles like this that you're really just wanting to maximize performance in those games that are not ray tracing bound, the 6800 might make sense. But we're talking about a $30 difference for the most part throughout this video. It still makes more sense to go with the new option because you're really not losing anything. You're only gaining performance. Next up, Cyberpunk, 1440p high settings with no upscaling. The RX 6800 got an average of 84 FPS with a minimum of 71 and a max of 100, while the 9060 XT got an average of 86 FPS, the minimum of 74 and a max of 103. We're talking about a 2 FPS difference here. Once again, I would lean the new card because you're really not spending that much more money, but technically you are saving money then if you go with the used option. It all just depends on the price performance and the market in your area. And lastly, 3D Mark Time Spy, and we're going to take the GPU score from this test and figure out a cent per point calculation to see exactly how much performance you're getting for your dollar. First, with the RX 6800, we end up with a GPU score of 16,876, which is a 2 cent per point score, while the 9060 XT 16 gig ended up with a score of 16,561, which is also a 2 cent per point GPU score. This is the one scenario where the 6800 actually performed better than the 9060 XT 16 gig, and it was a little weird seeing that, but the price performance of both GPUs are actually even, which means I would definitely lean much more towards the newer option because going used always has its inherent risks. If we're talking about a $30 difference based on the price that we are in today's video, the better overall option, considering the fact that it is also new, is the 9060 XT 16 gig. But it is still cool to see that an RX 6800, a GPU from 2020, is still performing very well in the latest titles, and if you find a really good deal on it, again, the prices on these need to drop a bit, especially with the 9060 XT 16 gig being such an awesome mid-range GPU, you can still find some good value for these on the used market, but it's all about the price versus the new option, and I'm always going to recommend people buy the new option when it is equal in value versus the used option. So let's go ahead and bring Jackson back in here and wrap up this benchmark video.
So those test results were pretty interesting because from what we could see, the 6800 in a lot of games is still pretty on par with the 9060 XT, just a little bit behind. But once you start to get into things like upscaling, frame gen, ray tracing, and even like live streaming, you start to really see the 9060 XT shine.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this comparison video. This video was actually created because we polled you guys on other GPU benchmark comparison videos you wanted to see over on a community post on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, if you aren't subscribed, subscribe to the channel and be sure to follow those so you can be contributing to future video ideas. But if you guys want to see any other comparisons, let us know down below. And if you want to buy any of the GPUs in today's video, links in the description down below will be affiliate links and it will help us out.
And to go over our final thoughts on these two graphics cards, and this is just opinionated really, but we can kind of say that the 9060 XT is better in almost every way. And the fact that it is 5 years newer, it actually has the best ray tracing support you can really get in any AMD GPU. It has better live streaming capabilities. It pulls less power. It's going to have longevity and better support, and it's not used. It's brand new for this price. It's kind of weird, I think, that the used market is still as high as it is when it comes to graphics card. I think a lot of these used GPUs need to come down so that us budget bros can put them in some more cheap budget builds. But anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
So we'll actually be using this GPU over here in a PC Bros build, and we use these 9060 XTs all the time as well, and our old test bench is also going to be for sale at PC Bros because we'd be getting rid of stuff there.
PCBros.tech. We sell awesome graphics cards. Well, we don't sell graphics cards. We put graphics cards in gaming PCs, then you can buy them. You know what? Just go to PC Bros and buy a PC today. Use code Toasty Bros on checkout. You will save 3% on your next purchase. See you guys later. Goodbye.